When you disappear without warning, they don't just lose you, they lose the version of themselves that felt in control. They didn't expect silence to shake them, but it does. Not because you said something cruel, not because you slammed a door or exploded with anger, but because you said nothing at all. And sometimes that's what hits the hardest. When you go quiet, it forces them to hear the truth they've been avoiding in their own mind. This isn't about payback, and it's definitely not about games. This is about choosing peace over chaos. And when peace enters the room, ego doesn't survive. Before we dive deep into this transformation, take a second. Go ahead and press the like button, hit subscribe, and make sure you're staying connected to this journey of healing and self-mastery. Trust me, this one's going to change something inside you. Maybe for good. Hey folks, picture this. Imagine being the sun. Day after day, you rise for someone. You show up even when the sky is cloudy, even when they act like they don't need your light. But one day you stop rising for them. No warning, no forecast, just silence. And suddenly they notice how cold the mornings feel. That's what happens when you disappear from someone's life. It's not just about your absence. It's about the warmth, the safety, the steady light they never thought would leave. Let's be real. They didn't think you had it in you. They thought you'd always be there, waiting, hoping, texting, checking in. You were dependable, predictable, safe. And that's exactly why they took you for granted, because people don't question the ground they walk on until it crumbles beneath their feet. My friends, your disappearance, that was the earthquake. It was the moment they realized they built comfort on someone else's commitment, and that foundation wasn't theirs to control. Now here's the lie we're breaking today. They don't care if you go silent. That's what the world tells you, that if you walk away, they'll move on, that they're unbothered. But let's tell the truth. Deep down, when someone truly mattered, silence doesn't just echo. It haunts. It whispers through the spaces they thought were solid, and the longer it lasts, the louder it screams. You see, silence is not weakness. It's not passive. It's power, my friends. Pure, unfiltered power. It's you saying, I don't need to explain why I left, because peace doesn't need justification. And that right there, that's Stoic wisdom. The kind that doesn't clap back, doesn't chase, doesn't argue. It simply removes itself and lets the silence do what words never could. Some will wonder why you changed. Some will try to pull you back into the noise. But remember this, when you choose to stop dancing for people who only noticed you when you performed, you win, not with bitterness, not with revenge, but with detachment. That's where your strength begins, not in shouting your worth, but in no longer offering it where it isn't honored. So if you've ever felt like disappearing was the only way to be seen, if you've ever watched someone take your loyalty and treat it like background noise, this one's for you. Stay with me, because we're about to walk through 9 powerful emotions they feel when you suddenly disappear. And by the end, you won't just understand their reaction, you'll understand your evolution. And I want you to drop this in the comments right now. I choose silence. Write it, feel it, own it. This is your affirmation today. Short, sharp, sovereign. I choose silence. And remember, if this already stirred something inside you, like this video, subscribe to the channel and stay with me. You're not disappearing to be cruel. You're disappearing to find yourself. And what comes next is everything they never saw coming. Number 1. The shock when your silence breaks their illusion. Sometimes the loudest thing you can ever say is nothing. You didn't storm out. You didn't leave them with a speech or a last dramatic message. You just vanished. And that silence, that's what broke them. because the absence of noise is where truth begins to echo. And for them, the moment you disappeared was the moment their illusions started to shatter. At first, they'll pretend nothing happened. They'll brush it off with a shrug. Maybe they're just busy. They'll replay past moments to convince themselves they've gone silent before. They'll come back. But deep down, something doesn't feel right. This time, it's different. There's no breadcrumb, no accidental like, no late-night emoji to test the waters. Just stillness. Imagine a house that looks strong on the outside. The paint's fresh, the lights are warm. But then, without warning, the foundation cracks. The power shuts off. And suddenly, the silence inside that house feels heavy. That's what your disappearance does. It cuts the power to their illusion of control. They were comfortable, not with who you were, but with the idea that they'd always have access to you. Now they're left with questions they can't outrun. Why did they stop reaching out? What did I do wrong? Are they okay? Or just done with me? It hits them like lightning, quick, uninvited, and hard to process. Because for the first time, they're not in control of the story. You were always there to fix the tension, to follow up, to smooth things over. But now, you're gone, not blocked, not erased, just unavailable. And that's worse, because it leaves them to sit with uncertainty. It forces them to look inward, and that's a place they've avoided for too long. Here's what nobody tells you. People don't always miss you. Sometimes they just miss the version of themselves that felt secure because of your presence. You were their anchor. You didn't demand attention, you gave stability. And the moment you took that away, they realized how fragile they really were. They'll feel the silence in the smallest ways, in the space where your good morning text used to be, in the moment their phone buzzes and they hope, just for a second, that it's you. In the lull of their daily routine, where your voice used to add calm. That emptiness, it grows fast. And it doesn't stop just because they pretend to be fine. They might even tell themselves, I didn't really care that much anyway. But that's the lie they tell themselves to stay proud, to stay numb, because the truth is that silence doesn't hurt unless someone mattered. And your silence is now the mirror they can't turn away from. This is why it's difficult, because walking away without explaining yourself feels wrong at first. You're trained to be the peacemaker, the fixer, the loyal one, and that identity, it's heavy. You've probably thought to yourself, maybe I should say something. Maybe I owe them closure. But listen closely. You don't owe closure to someone who ignored the presence that kept showing up. You walking away without noise? That was the closure. It was the final boundary, the ultimate truth. Not to hurt them, but to save you. Because peace isn't found in chasing people who never asked you how your soul was doing. It's found in reclaiming the energy you wasted explaining your worth. This is where you rise, not in anger, not in games, but in calm. And trust me, they feel it. They don't know how to explain it, but the moment you went quiet, something shifted. You're not just silent, you're unreachable. And in a world addicted to instant replies and emotional reactions, that kind of stillness, that's terrifying. So take a deep breath, my friend. Let go of the urge to fix what's breaking. You're not responsible for how they respond to your silence. You're only responsible for honoring the strength it took to choose it. Now drop this in the comments to declare your power. My silence speaks volumes. Say it loud in writing, even if you're quiet in life. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that your silence isn't retreat. It's respect for your own soul. And if this hit home, stay with me, because what comes next? That's when the silence starts to echo louder than any apology they'll ever try to make. Number 2, denial, when they pretend not to care but it's cracking. Pride wears a smile, but pain leaks through the silence. They didn't flinch, at least not at first. They didn't run to their phone. They didn't panic. They didn't text. They didn't beg. No, instead, they laughed louder, posted a selfie, shared a story of some fake adventure, some random joy with friends. And for a moment, it almost looked like they didn't care that you were gone, that you disappeared without warning, that the energy you gave, the care you offered, had just evaporated. But here's the truth behind that performance. It's not indifference, it's denial. And denial always starts with pretending. Pretending they're better off, pretending you never mattered that much, pretending they weren't checking their phone in between those smiling pictures, hoping to see your name pop up again. This is where their mask shows up. The pride mask. The I'm fine without you mask. And it fits a little too well, until it doesn't. Because as the hours stretch into days and the days stretch into silence, cracks begin to form. The silence you left behind, it starts to crawl under their skin. Not loudly, quietly, like water dripping from a leaky faucet, constant, annoying, impossible to ignore. Imagine this. They're on a stage. The lights are bright. The audience is watching. They're performing happiness, confidence, freedom. But backstage, the walls are shaking, the mirror's cracked, the makeup is smudged from tears they won't admit to. That's denial. It's a stage act with a price. Because the more they fake being unaffected, the more the truth eats at them behind the scenes. You see, they weren't expecting you to go silent for this long. They were banking on your pattern, your tendency to reach out, to fold, to fix. They thought this was just another one of your moments, that you'd eventually come back, just like all the other times. But something's different now. You're not reaching, you're not watching, you're not even playing the game. And that unsettles them, because deep down, they know they pushed too far, took too much, ignored too long. They know the warmth you brought wasn't just attention, it was presence. And presence doesn't come with a price tag, but once it's gone, it leaves a cold that nothing else can fix. This is when they start talking to themselves through silence. They're probably just going through something. Maybe they're waiting for me to reach out first. It's not a big deal. I'll hear from them soon. These are the inner lies they tell to avoid the truth, that they were never prepared to lose you, that they never expected you to stop showing up, that they didn't think your silence would feel this permanent. But let's pause here, because this is where your strength is tested too. You might see them pretending, acting unaffected, living like your absence hasn't rattled their world. And part of you might wonder, did they ever care at all? That's the doubt that sneaks in. That's the fear whispering, trying to undo your clarity. Don't let it. Their silence doesn't mean peace. Their performance doesn't mean healing. Their denial is just a delay. And delays always come to an end. They will sit with your absence. They will feel it. Not when the world's watching, but when it's just them and their thoughts and the truth they've been avoiding. This is the price of losing access to someone who was genuine. You don't replace that overnight. You don't erase that with a filter or a fake smile. The loss starts to speak when the noise fades. And the more they try to act like they don't feel it, the deeper it cuts. So here's your reminder. Their performance is not your responsibility. Your job was never to convince them of your worth. Your only job now is to stand in your silence like a mountain stands through storms, unmoved, unshaken, unchanged. Because you didn't walk away to get attention. You walked away to get peace. And if you're ever tempted to explain yourself, to clear things up, to make sure they understand why you're gone, remember this. Those who were careless with your presence don't deserve your clarity. Drop this in the comments to own your truth. I'm done explaining. Say it. Show it. Let the world feel it. This is your time to stop justifying peace and start embodying it. And stay with me, because the next part, that's when their curiosity starts to spiral, and obsession begins to replace denial. You don't want to miss what happens next. Number 3. Confusion. When silence says more than words ever could. It's not the absence that breaks them, it's the questions your silence leaves behind. Silence, still, unshaken, and louder than anything you ever said out loud. At first, they thought they had it figured out. They assumed you were just playing hard to get, taking a little space, trying to test their loyalty. They whispered to themselves, "They'll come back." They always do. They thought your silence had an expiration date, that it was just another part of the pattern they'd grown used to. A pause before the apology, a break before the chase. But days passed, then weeks, and still nothing. That's when confusion steps in like fog rolling over a familiar road. Suddenly, they can't see what's ahead. They can't read you anymore. The one who used to be predictable, steady, always available. You've become unreadable. And nothing confuses someone more than losing control over a narrative they thought they owned. They begin to second-guess everything. Did I push them away? Why aren't they reacting? Did they finally stop caring? Their mind becomes a prison, and your silence is the echo in the cell. It bounces off the walls, day and night, every moment they used to ignore. Now they replay it on loop. Every message they left on read, every time they shrugged off your effort, every joke you told that they brushed past without a smile. It all hits different now, and it stings. Imagine being in a room where someone used to speak to you every day. Same tone, same warmth, same love, and now, just emptiness. No sound, no clues, nothing. That silence? It forces them to listen to themselves, to the guilt, to the patterns, to the things they never wanted to admit. They start talking to people about you, not for answers, but for reassurance. Because deep down, they're scared. Scared that your silence isn't temporary. Scared that it's real this time. They might say, "It's not that serious," to save face. But their actions betray their words. They'll check your social media, scroll through old messages, look at your last scene, watch your stories, if you even allow them to. And every time they don't find what they're hoping for, the confusion grows. Not just about where you are, but who you've become. Because here's the kicker, silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the presence of strength. It's discipline in motion. It's you saying, "I don't need to argue, I don't need to explain, I don't need to perform." And that level of emotional control, it doesn't just confuse them, it shakes them. Why? Because they're used to reactions, they're used to drama, they're used to people yelling, crying, begging to be understood. That's their comfort zone. But you gave them none of that. You gave them distance, detachment, dignity, and that's foreign to someone who thrives on control. Confusion becomes their new normal. They start noticing how everything feels off. That coffee doesn't taste the same. That laugh didn't feel real. That room feels colder. Because your presence wasn't just a person in their life, it was an energy, a calm, a safety net. And now, they're free-falling in their own mind, reaching for something that no longer exists. You may not see it, but they're crumbling behind the curtain. You became the constant they didn't thank, the calm they never credited, the love they never truly valued until it went silent. And now they're stuck with nothing but their thoughts, and your silence replaying in every empty space. And here's where you need to stay strong, because confusion is contagious. You might start wondering, did I go too far? Should I reach out? But remember, your silence isn't punishment. It's proof. Proof that you've chosen your peace over their confusion. And if they're really confused, maybe it's because they never took the time to understand you in the first place. So drop this in the comments right now. My silence is strength. Let it be heard without saying a word. Let it be seen in your stillness, in your discipline, in your peace. Stay with me, because what's coming next is even more powerful. The confusion doesn't just sit quietly. It starts to morph into something far deeper: curiosity, obsession, and that's when they start chasing answers in places they never dared to look before. Number 4. Curiosity. When their mind turns you into a mystery they can't solve. The less they know about you now, the more their mind creates versions of you that never existed until they start believing every one of them. At first it was confusion, a haze, a question mark lingering in the back of their thoughts. But now, it's growing, morphing, turning into something more restless, more consuming. You went silent, and that silence didn't just leave a gap. It left 1,000 unanswered questions. Where did you go? Why aren't you watching their stories? Why did you stop caring so suddenly? Are you really that calm, or is someone else making you forget? Their curiosity becomes a whisper at first, just a flicker. But when your silence stays solid, when you don't slip, don't reach out, don't crack, it starts to roar inside them. They start checking your profile at odd hours, stalking mutual friends to see if you've been seen, refreshing a conversation you never answered just to see if your status changed. They'll revisit old photos, reread your old texts, searching for clues in your past behavior that might explain the stillness you've become. Because here's what nobody tells you about going silent. When you become a mystery, you become magnetic. And the moment they can't read you anymore, their mind starts writing its own chapters. And most of those stories, they hurt. Because now they're imagining things they never thought they'd fear. You laughing with someone new, healing without them, living a life where they don't exist anymore. And the most terrifying part? They have no idea if it's true. That's the beauty of real silence, not the kind that begs to be broken, the kind that's rooted in emotional independence. It's when you don't disappear to punish them, but to find peace. That kind of silence isn't empty. It's heavy, mysterious, alluring. And now they're obsessed, not with what you said, but with what you didn't. Imagine this: a locked door that used to be wide open. They'd walk in and out as they pleased, never knocking, never asking permission. But now it's shut tight. No key, no clue. And behind that door, they know there's something powerful, something new. And the more they can't get in, the more they need to. That's the human mind. We don't chase what's easy to get. We chase what feels just out of reach, what feels rare, what feels valuable. They'll try to act unbothered still. They'll post little jabs, songs, quotes, photos meant for you but addressed to no one. They might even test the waters. A reaction to your story, a like on an old post, maybe a half-hearted, "Hey, just checking in." But every move they make is dripping with curiosity. Every attempt is a searchlight. Because now they're hunting for the version of you they never truly paid attention to when they had the chance. And you? You say nothing. That's what drives them mad, because the old you would have responded. You would have taken the bait, explained, reassured, given them closure they didn't deserve, but not anymore. Now you're not on the same emotional leash. You've disconnected. And to them, that kind of self-control isn't just unfamiliar, it's infuriating. Because in their world, silence means you lost. But in your world, silence means you won. And still, they'll keep coming back. Not with open arms, but with eyes full of questions. They won't say it, but their behavior will scream it. What changed? Who are you now? How can you be so okay without me? They want to understand the person you've become, because that person no longer makes them feel in control. That person no longer revolves around their validation. And that realization? That's when their curiosity becomes obsession. When the silence becomes the loudest part of their day. When they can't scroll, breathe, or sleep without thinking about what they don't know anymore. You're not ignoring them to get attention. You're silent because you've evolved beyond the need for explanation. And that's what makes you unforgettable. Now drop this in the comments if you've ever been misunderstood for choosing peace. I'm not a mystery, I'm just finally unavailable. Say it with certainty. Own it with pride. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that curiosity is just the mind reacting to the absence of what it once abused. And stay with me, because next, that curiosity turns into something darker, something deeper. That's when fear sets in, and when fear walks in the room, everything changes. Number 5, fear, when they finally realize you might not come back. The scariest part isn't that you're gone, it's realizing you're not coming back. Fear doesn't always enter with a scream. Sometimes it slips in through the silence, soft, slow, suffocating. And after the curiosity has twisted their mind into knots, after the stalking, the wondering, the overthinking, fear makes itself at home, not just because you're gone, but because you're staying gone. And that's when it finally hits them. This might be permanent. At first, they told themselves a story, that you just needed space, that this was just a phase, that you were taking time, but you'd return. You always did. And if not today, then maybe tomorrow, or the next. But eventually, they'd see your name light up their phone again. That's what they believed. But days turn into nights, and nights turn into silence. No text, no post, no slip-up they can cling to for hope. Nothing. And then it begins, those late-night whispers in their mind. What if this isn't a break? What if they've really moved on? What if they've found someone better? That's when the air gets heavy. That's when the silence stops being confusing or frustrating and starts becoming terrifying, because they thought they had more time, more power, more of your loyalty and reserve. They never expected your absence to hold. They never expected your peace to grow. And now they're not just wondering where you went. They're afraid of what your disappearance says about them. Here's the hard truth. When someone's been the center of your attention, your love, your effort, and suddenly they're not, it forces a collapse, not externally, internally. Because they didn't just lose someone, they lost someone who saw them, who held space for them, who gave what didn't need to be earned but should have been respected. And now, they're alone with the consequence of their carelessness. They begin imagining everything. You with someone new. You waking up smiling, unbothered, completely healed. They see you glowing, free from the weight they once added to your life. They imagine someone else holding your attention, laughing at your jokes, receiving your consistency. And that image, it hurts. Because for the first time they realize they might have let go of the best thing they ever had. Not in a dramatic way, not in an explosive breakup, but in small, quiet ways. Through neglect, through pride, through taking you for granted one too many times. And now, you're no longer there to make it easy. They used to have access. Unlimited, instant, emotional access to you. But now they're locked out, and fear creeps in like a cold wind through the cracks of their ego. They refresh your page, hoping for something, a sign, a story. Even a passive-aggressive quote would bring relief at this point, because any reaction means they still matter. But your silence? It says they don't have that kind of power anymore. And that terrifies them, because the moment someone realizes they no longer have influence over your mind, your heart, your attention, they panic, not because they love you, but because their control is gone. And when the game ends, the players with nothing to lose are the ones who scream the loudest. Not because they want to win, but because they don't know who they are without the scoreboard. But here's where your strength shines. You're not the person you used to be, the one who explained too much, who reached out just to keep the peace, who feared being misunderstood more than they feared being mistreated. That version of you, gone. And what replaced it is someone who values their own peace more than someone else's opinion. They might text, they might call, they might even show up, teary-eyed, dramatic, desperate to rewind. But remember, fear is a powerful motivator and a terrible foundation. Don't mistake their panic for transformation. Don't let their regret disrupt your clarity. Because you didn't go silent to punish them, you went silent to protect yourself, to heal, to remember who you were before you became their emotional safety net. Now take a breath. Feel that stillness. That's power. Drop this in the comments right now. I'm not coming back to chaos. Let it be a declaration. Let it remind you, and let it echo through anyone who ever thought you'd break your silence just because they got scared. And stay with me, because what happens next, that fear turns into something even harder to live with. Regret. And it doesn't scream, it lingers. It lives in them long after you're gone. Let's talk about that next. Number 6. Regret. When they realize they lost something they can't replace. They don't regret losing you at first. They regret it when they finally understand who you were. Regret doesn't show up with fireworks. It doesn't come marching in with loud apologies or grand gestures. No, regret creeps in like a shadow at the end of a long day, quiet, heavy, lingering. And when it finally finds them, it settles deep in their chest, like a weight they can't shake. You see, at first, they didn't think your silence mattered. They thought it was temporary, a phase, a mood. They assumed they'd still have a place in your life when the dust settled, because that's how it had always been. You were the one who reached out, the one who kept the peace, the one who held things together even when they were slipping. But now, it's been too long, too quiet, too real. And the silence is no longer just absence. It's evidence that you're done, that you've evolved, that you're no longer looking back. And suddenly, they feel it. The sting, the ache, the loss. Not just of you, but of everything that came with you. Because you weren't just someone they spent time with. You were their anchor, their calm, their safe space. You listened when they didn't speak clearly. You stayed when they were distant. You loved them in their mess. And now, the memory of that kind of love, it haunts them. They start to see the things they ignored, the messages you sent when they barely replied, the times you showed up when they gave you half effort, the patience you held when they tested your limits, the way you protected their heart, even when they didn't guard yours. And now they're left with silence and a mind that won't let them forget. They'll walk into rooms that remind them of you. They'll hear songs that sound different now. They'll look at people they used to compare you to and realize those people never measured up. Because here's the brutal truth. You were never the problem. You were the piece they didn't recognize. And now that you're gone, they finally see the contrast. And it cuts deeper than any fight ever could. Imagine a room filled with noise, laughter, distractions, movement. That was their life with you. But now, it's quiet. And in that quiet, the echoes of what they took for granted bounce back louder than ever. The good mornings they ignored, the just checking in messages they rolled their eyes at. The way you asked if they were okay, not out of obligation, but from genuine care. That's the stuff that sticks. That's the stuff they regret. And they'll try to distract themselves. Maybe they'll go out more. Maybe they'll talk to someone new. Maybe they'll pretend to be unbothered, hoping you'll see it and react. But deep down, they know. No one else brings what you brought. No one else feels like home. Because your kind of love wasn't just rare, it was real. But you're not sitting around waiting for them to wake up. You're not hoping for the message. You're not checking to see if they miss you. Because this time, your silence isn't a strategy. It's your standard. You're not withholding love. You're reclaiming it. And that's what breaks them most. They realize they can't just walk back in. They can't just say sorry and have it reset. Because the door they used to leave open for themselves, you closed it, not with bitterness, but with boundaries. And that is the kind of closure that changes people. Regret doesn't scream, it whispers. It whispers when they're alone. It whispers when they scroll through old photos. It whispers when they realize they were loved deeply by someone who no longer needs to explain why they left. So here's what you need to remember. Regret is their storm to weather, not yours to fix. Let them feel it. Let them sit in it. Let them carry the weight of what they didn't value. Because some people don't learn through love, they learn through loss. Now drop this in the comments. I was the peace they'll never find again. Say it with conviction. Say it for every version of you that tried, gave, waited, and stayed. You didn't lose. You let go, and that's what finally set you free. And stay with me, because after regret comes something darker. Jealousy. When they start picturing someone else in your arms, smiling at the version of you they threw away. Let's talk about that next. Number 7. Jealousy. When they imagine someone else got the version of you they ignored. They weren't afraid of losing you until they imagined someone else holding what they dropped. Jealousy doesn't always look loud. It doesn't always come with accusations or angry texts. Sometimes it hides behind curiosity, behind fake smiles, behind silence. But make no mistake, when they start imagining someone else standing where they used to stand, it burns. They scroll through your page more often now. They look for signs, new connections, new likes, a different glow in your face. They try to convince themselves it's nothing. They're probably just focusing on themselves. But that little voice, it grows, it whispers. What if they've moved on? What if someone else gets the version I didn't appreciate? And that's where it begins. You were once a constant in their world. The one who showed up. The one who stayed patient when they were distant. The one who loved loudly while they stayed quiet. They didn't worry about losing you because they assumed you'd always be there. They thought your love was a faucet they could turn off and on, until the day they turned around and realized it wasn't flowing anymore. Now their thoughts spiral. Who are you smiling at now? Are you laughing with someone else the way you used to with them? Is someone else hearing your deep thoughts at midnight? Are they feeling the calm they never appreciated? They thought they were the main character in your story. But now they feel like a side note in a chapter you've already closed. And jealousy doesn't creep in when they see you hurting. It invades when they see you healing, smiling, evolving, quietly happy, unreachable. That's what scares them most. Because healing doesn't look like drama. It looks like peace. And when you wear peace well, it shines, it radiates. And that glow, that's what drives them mad. Because they never saw it when they had you. But now, from the outside looking in, you've become a whole new mystery, one they don't have the password to anymore. They'll try to convince themselves you're pretending, that your glow is forced, that your peace is fake, because the only thing more painful than losing you is accepting that someone else might be treating you better. That someone else sees your value instantly while they took it for granted daily. And maybe they won't say it out loud. Maybe they'll never send the message. But they'll feel it in their chest every time your name comes up. Every time someone brings you up and says, they're doing well now. Every time they see a glimpse of your life that no longer includes them. That jealousy? It's not just about you finding someone new. It's about you becoming someone new. Someone that doesn't need them. Someone that doesn't chase. Someone that doesn't check in or look back. You became the version of yourself they always feared. The one who finally realized they deserved better. They'll post stories to catch your attention, throw shade in captions, maybe even try to show off their own new person. But every move is a reaction, a scream into the void you no longer stand in, because you're not watching, you're not engaging, you're not competing, and that drives them mad. Because you're not playing the game anymore. You left the field, took your ball, built your own peace, and now they're left in the stadium of what could have been, staring at empty seats. Here's what you need to remember. Jealousy is their emotion, not your responsibility. You don't need to tone down your healing to comfort the ones who mishandled you. You don't need to apologize for being seen by someone new, especially when you spent so long feeling invisible with them. So drop this in the comments. I don't compete for what I've outgrown. Say it with confidence. Say it for your younger self, the one who waited, hoped, begged to be seen. That version of you doesn't live here anymore. And stay with me, because what comes next? That's when the power shift becomes permanent. That's when they realize they don't even have access to who you've become, and nothing shatters them more than that. Let's get into it next. Number 8, power shift. When they realize they can't reach you anymore. Nothing haunts the ego more than realizing you lost access to someone who never begged to stay. At first, they thought it was temporary. They believed, deep down, that your silence was just a moment, a phase, a message waiting to be answered, maybe even a test. They figured you'd come back around, eventually. Because you always did, right? But something's different this time. You're not flinching, you're not watching, you're not even reacting, and that's when it hits them. The access is gone, not limited, not paused, gone. They can't just call you up at 2 a.m. when the world feels heavy. They can't shoot you a, hey, just thinking of you, and expect warmth in return. They can't drop a breadcrumb and watch you run to pick it up. Because now, you've changed the locks, you've boarded the windows, you've left the building, and all they're left with is the echo of who you used to be in their life. That realization hits like a wave, unexpected, but undeniable. You were the reliable one, the one who forgave too much, the one who stayed too long, the one who kept giving love even when it wasn't returned properly. But now, you're calm, you're quiet, you're unavailable, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, energetically. And that kind of detachment, that's power. Because in a world full of noise and desperation, stillness is terrifying. When they can't get a reaction, can't pull a response, can't manipulate the moment anymore. That's when they start to unravel. They'll try to poke at you subtly, a song lyric in their story, a memory post that screams nostalgia, a mutual friend suddenly checking in. But it's all the same game with a different strategy. And the game, it only works when both players are still at the table. But you're not playing anymore. You left the arena. You stopped performing. You stopped proving. You stopped bleeding to keep someone else warm. And now they're not hurt by your words. They're wounded by your silence. Because your silence is no longer absence. It's proof that you no longer revolve around them. It's evidence that you've taken your power back. And it's confirmation that they can't touch the version of you that now stands alone, whole, and free. You became unreachable, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. And that distance, it's not petty, it's permanent. They'll start to feel small in ways they never imagined, because the one they used to overlook has now become someone they can't even access. The loyalty they ignored has now become the boundary they can't break. This is what happens when you reclaim your energy. You become the lesson they weren't ready to learn. You become the mirror they can't face. You become the door that stays closed no matter how many times they knock. And the most brutal part for them, you're not even angry, you're just done. You're not proving a point, you've simply elevated. And that silence, that stillness, that distance, it breaks them more than any harsh words ever could. Because ego can't fight what doesn't respond. Control can't work where there's no emotional hook. And they're left drowning in the realization that the one who used to care just doesn't anymore. So if you're feeling tempted to reply, don't. If you're feeling guilty for moving on, breathe through it. Because this isn't about who you used to be. This is about who you refused to stay for someone who only saw your value when you finally walked away. Drop this in the comments right now. I am no longer available to what broke me. Let it be loud, let it be felt. Let it stand as a declaration that your energy is sacred, your peace is final, and your silence is not a wound, it's a weapon of wisdom. And stay with me, because next we'll talk about what this shift really means, not just for them, but for you. Because the final stage isn't about their pain, it's about your freedom, your emotional independence. And that, my friends, is the real power. Number 9, emotional independence. When their story ends and yours finally begins. You don't heal by going back to what broke you. You heal by becoming someone they can't reach anymore. And now, we're here. They've cycled through it all, the shock, the confusion, the obsession, the regret, the jealousy. But the final blow, it's not your silence, it's your freedom. Because now they see it. You didn't just disappear, you disconnected. You didn't go quiet to punish them. You went quiet to protect yourself. You stopped explaining, stopped performing, stopped handing over access to someone who didn't value the gift. You stopped being the version of you that needed validation and became the version that lives in peace. They're still stuck in loops. But you're building something. You're laughing again, not for anyone, not to prove anything, but because you finally feel light again. You're waking up without checking your phone. You're breathing deeper. You're loving yourself louder. And that glow, that's not for attention, that's from healing. This isn't the end of a relationship, it's the rebirth of your identity. So don't let them pull you back with memories. Don't let fear dress up as unfinished business. Because nothing is more complete than your silence. And the story doesn't end with what they feel. It begins with what you've become. Drop this in the comments right now. My peace is permanent. Write it, mean it, show them, show yourself. Show the world around you that your silence was never weakness, it was wisdom. And if this message hit you in the heart, like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs to remember their power. Because you didn't lose them, you found you. And that's the real win.